19-year-old Karmelo Anthony sentenced to 35 years in prison for fatally stabbing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf at a track meet. Metcalf's father delivering an emotional victim impact statement saying, quote, "We were robbed. This was never about race. It is about right and wrong. My son's death destroyed the person I used to be. He does not exist anymore. You're going to prison. I forgave you the day it happened. I don't forgive what you did. You can't look me in the eyes, but you can stab my bleeping son." The Collin County DA adding this.
Today, justice was served. Despite the trauma of witnessing the senseless murder at a school track meet, they cooperated fully and testified truthfully. Their courage was essential to securing justice in this case. This verdict sends a clear message. Violence like this won't be tolerated in our Collin County community, and we remain committed to protecting our schools and standing with victims and their families.
Former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Detainee Affairs, Cully Stimson, joins me now. Cully, yesterday was about analyzing the verdict and the sentence. Today is about what comes next. On what grounds do you expect the defense to appeal this verdict?
Well, they're going to look for any errors they believe the trial judge made or the prosecutor made. And I think the first one they're going to do is they're going to file what's called a Batson claim. Batson versus Kentucky was the Supreme Court case that says you cannot use race as the primary factor to exercise your peremptory challenge to get rid of potential jurors. And the prosecution did excuse three jurors who were black. So they will appeal that and say that was done in an unconstitutional way. Now, you can excuse minority members of the jury for non-racial reasons, and the prosecutor did give a facially non-racial reason for that. So that will be one area of appeal. But they'll look at they'll get the trial transcripts, and they'll look at every aspect of the trial and what the judge did, and then they'll appeal on those grounds.
Boy, Alex, you did that interviewer dirty by cutting him off mid-sentence. Okay, yeah, let's go. We have plenty to say on our own program, so why don't we get to actually chatting about what happened yesterday, which was a massive news day. Today, ladies and gentlemen, is Wednesday, June 10th, 2026. Karmelo Anthony is in jail. He is beginning 35 years of a prison sentence. Far too little. In fact, far too lenient. The death sentence would actually be an appropriate sentence for Karmelo Anthony. That would be Old Testament judgment. Why isn't it the death sentence? Well, because of some insane Supreme Court ruling that said you can't execute a minor. Otherwise, Karmelo Anthony should be suffering the same fate from a justice standpoint after trial, after jury, and the jury found him guilty of murder yesterday. So if you're guilty of murder, well, you know, Karmelo Anthony's mom gets to go visit Karmelo Anthony for the rest of her life, her miserable, despicable life. The rest of Karmelo Anthony's despicable life. By the way, Karmelo Anthony refused to look in the eye any of the Metcalf family as they stood before him and read their victim statements. Just a reminder of what filth, scum, these hoodlum rats are. It is so despicable what happened yesterday. It should have been 99 years. I'm angry that it's only 35 years. I guess, based on what we've seen in American culture, it could have been a, hung jury or a self-defense, or we don't want to get doxxed or have our homes burned down. So I guess I'm glad that we got the murder verdict, but you would have to be functionally retarded to have watched this trial and not come to that conclusion. Something else is happening also in the world. The UK is set ablaze because of something that sort of rhymes with what's happening here. Senseless, preventable violence that has to do with cultural rot brought about by our intel agencies, deep state, and leaders, globalist leaders in this nation, in our nations and in all of the West. And that is what the true fight is against. There's a through line from Karmelo Anthony to the beheading in the UK. It's the same thing. Same weapons, in fact. And the same cultures. We're going to talk about that. And we're not going to be shying away from these things any longer. On this program, you're going to get the truth about what we are up against, because it's not a Republican or Democrat issue. It's not left or right. It's light versus dark. It's good versus evil. And it's time to fight back. We'll be fighting back with Stephen Davis, Byron Donalds, and Brandon Gill on the show today. My name is Benny Johnson, and this is The Benny Show. American financing for your American future. American financing can ensure that you are out of high-interest credit card debt. I view it as an immorality. I think it should be illegal. I'm aligned with Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders on this. Maybe it is one point of absolute agreement. There should be caps on credit card debt. A lot of Americans are drowning in it. Get out from under it. Call American Financing today and reconsolidate your debt. Call American Financing today at 888-528-1219. That's 888-528-1219. AmericanFinancing.net to seize your American future debt-free. A life of debt is a life of slavery. And I don't want you to be a slave. I want you to be free. Okay, so I don't think we need to talk more. I mean, we spent all day raging at the sun about what happened with Karmelo Anthony yesterday in court. I have a couple of really quick things that I wanted to bring up that I think is kind of fascinating and interesting. Is that this entire culture of gangsterism, this entire culture of hedonism. It's a reminder that Karmelo Anthony. Do you have the Karmelo Anthony AK-47 flipping off pictures, Alex? If we don't have them in the script, that's fine. I got them. Here we go. This is Karmelo Anthony. It's the Karmelo Anthony they won't show you. This is the Karmelo Anthony that they tried so desperately to hide. Little wannabe gangster, little wannabe thug who was trapped, and mind poisoned and brain rotted because of his parents allowed it to happen. Parents probably encouraged it to happen. You can see the protesters, the low IQ, race hatred, tribalism, 70 IQ, just hate white people, protesters outside, just blame white people, just like, whatever. Your life's going to hell in a handbasket, so let's blame the Jews, let's blame white people. Let's blame structural racism. Let's never take accountability for our own actions, our own culture, our own incapacity to raise our own children. Let's just cry about it when our children commit murder in cold blood. Oh, the horrors. My kids can't commit murder in cold blood. Alex, get me the one with him in the AK-47, please. I want the side-by-side. Toss it up when you got it. Oh, the horror. We can't commit murder anymore. Like, what could you imagine if your son went out on the street? Like, could you imagine being a black parent in America today and your son goes out, stabs someone, kills him to death, stabs him and kills him to death, innocent white kid, and then they have to face prison? Could you imagine the horror of that? For taking the life of another young man, of an innocent young man who actually had things going for him? Yeah. Karmelo Anthony, what a tough little gangster he was. He probably thought he was going to be real tough when he stabbed a white kid. And they were going to write rap songs about him, and they were going to do graffiti about him on the train tracks, and I don't know, get a pair of sneakers named after him. There you go. This is Karmelo Anthony. Thank you. This is Karmelo Anthony. But Karmelo Anthony, this version of Karmelo Anthony actually is just a flex. Because actual strength doesn't need to get in your face with a middle finger and a lighter, drugs, and an AK-47. Strength is silent. And actual masculine strength is reserved. It doesn't need to wile out, scream in your face, I'll stab you, touch me, and see what happens. Karmelo Anthony was asked to leave the tent 15 times. Karmelo Anthony attacked the other students, called them slurs, called them names, stabbed one of them through the chest plate into his heart. That's how hard the stab was. Pierced his heart muscles, blew out Austin Metcalf's heart. The autopsy shows a stab wound clear through his chest. The jury gasped and delivered a murder guilty verdict yesterday Praise God. Thank God for this justice finally served in one of these cases. I was getting a little worried that we'd have an OJ situation here. But thankfully, they were really wise in the jury selection. And at least when it came to selecting jurors, they selected people who weren't going to decide the fate of this killer based on the melanin in his skin. And they returned a guilty verdict. It should have been the electric chair or lethal injection. That would be justice. That would be actual justice, an eye for an eye. But again, unfortunately, that's illegal. You can't execute a minor. Even though Karmelo Anthony is 19, he will be 54 when he gets out of prison, if he's denied parole, which he should be. So we got 35 years. The reason I'm showing you these photos of Karmelo Anthony is because Karmelo Anthony shook and cried and blubbered like a little bitch. Sorry for the language. There's no other way to describe it. And I'm describing it in order to hurt his feelings. I want his feelings to be hurt. Karmelo Anthony is filth. Disgusting. Worst elements of our society. His parents are filth. And what we found out yesterday is the real Karmelo Anthony, which isn't these photos, but a young man who was shaking and quivering on the ground, shaking and tremoring so much that he was unable to actually hold himself together, that he had a panic attack in the courthouse. Real tough guy, right? Stab you in the heart, kill you, right? ALX, please get the thread on this. He's so tough. He can go kill a white kid, right? An unarmed white kid. He's a real tough guy. Well, when they read this sentence in the courthouse, Karmelo Anthony melted into a puddle of sobbing, blubbering. They had to remove him from the courthouse because he was so hysterical and weepy. Same thing with his mom. The court reporters said that in a miraculous and shocking moment that the judge was asked by Karmelo Anthony's public defender, which, where'd all the money go? You know, they raised $700,000 in their GoFundMe, their Give, Send, Go. Where'd all the money go? Well, it certainly didn't go to good representation. They certainly didn't pay the lawyer. No. The family has brand new Escalade, moved into a brand new home in a cul-de-sac in a gated community, and got brand new sneakers, brand new shoes, a Carnival cruise, and Karmelo Anthony is getting 35 years. And humiliated before the court. Extraordinary moment. Karmelo Anthony's lawyer asked if he could take his blubbering client somewhere and pull himself together, to pull Karmelo Anthony together because he was shaking and crying. You know, Karmelo Anthony's actually a teeny little guy. He got his mugshot now. Put his mugshot up. 130 pounds, 5'9". Karmelo Anthony's actually a little, like a little girl. Gonna have a great time in prison. And the judge said, you can't take your client anywhere. Your client has been found guilty of murder. Your client is now under arrest and is in the custody of the sheriff. Put the tweet back up. So that's very interesting to see how these little gangsters actually behave when they have to face consequences. And you know why we're in this situation? Because Karmelo Anthony faced no consequences for his entire life. His parent didn't parent him. He's a young man, like so many other young men, who don't ever have to, because they didn't have fathers, because they didn't have present parents, never had to experience what real life is. The reason why it's important for me to teach my sons and my daughters, but especially my sons, real life physical consequences while they are young, cause and effect while they are young, a rules-based society that built the West while they are young, Christian principles, Christian justice. Because one, that is how the Western world is set up. Two, when you get into the real world hits back. If you think that your entire life, if your parents, which Carmelo Anthony's parents did, look at the way that they were behaving. His mom got a nose job. That's what the money went towards. Carmelo Anthony's parents went out and like are living large off the fundraiser for their kid. That's also why they didn't have him plead out. You know, he could have just pled guilty because he is. They have all the, I mean, not only was he found guilty, but they have it all on camera. They had 15 witnesses. Carmelo Anthony, it was such a train wreck. This is such a Titanic train wreck. Their own witnesses turned against them. Carmelo Anthony's own witnesses turned against him. On the stand, impeached their own testimony. Every witness they called up on behalf of Carmelo Anthony said that he's actually in the wrong and that he deserved it. That he did it. That he committed murder and he was in the wrong. Every single witness was able to be turned by the prosecution against Carmelo Anthony. That's how bad or poorly the case was made. His parents wanted to live in a gated community, and now Carmelo Anthony will be living in a gated community for the next few decades. And hopefully the rest of his life. I hope they're able to compound charges here. I hope they're able to sue in civil court the family, bankrupt them, take every single dollar, take every single penny from them. The way that these people have behaved has been utterly despicable filth. Pull up, Alex, no doubt you have the posts, right, about how they wouldn't even look in the eyes the family members. So Austin Metcalf's brother died in his arms. He's sitting there telling Carmelo Anthony, look at me when I'm talking to you. Because they're giving these witness statements afterwards. And Karmelo Anthony refused to even make eye contact. That is the level of parasitic scum these people are. That is the level of indecency. I want to talk a little bit about decency. I'm going to talk a bit about this. Give me a protester video, please. Yeah. In the protester video. So here's a lady that says, I have 5 sons. What are they supposed to do? What are my 5 sons supposed to do? This is the reaction to the Carmelo Anthony murder conviction.
What do you want us to do? That's right. What do you want us to do at this point? What? I'm lost for it. I don't know what to do. I got 5 boys. I don't know what. I ain't got nothing to tell them no more. You can't walk away no more.
Rest in peace, Trayvon Martin. Let me ask you this right now. I hear.
What are you supposed to do? Well, you could stop murdering us. How about we start there? That'd be a good threshold. How about you stop murdering and raping us and our children? Maybe that. Maybe don't raise your sons to be killers. Yeah, exactly. Maybe actually raise your children to exist in a consequence society. I know that my sons, if they decide to go get in a fight, if they drink too much, or God forbid, it's hard because they're little babies, but like that's just the way that culture goes. If they decide to go out and while out, they're young men. Young men make mistakes. They'll be punched in the face. That's the world of men. If they do too many bad things, they'll be put in prison. They'll be put in handcuffs and thrown in jail. That's the world. I don't want that for my sons. I don't want my sons to be beat up and left in a ditch. I don't want my sons to be stabbed in the heart. I don't want my sons to be put in handcuffs. And all of that has happened to different sons of people in this scenario. I'm not saying the Metcalfs did anything wrong. They are completely the victims here. But nobody wants their son to be in that situation, in that circumstance. So I better show my kids cause and effect right now. That lady, what am I going to do with my sons? Well, you parent them. So that if they're in Carmelo Anthony's situation, they leave the tent. And they say, oh, my bad. Sorry about that. Or how about this? A little bit of politeness goes a long way in society. What would the timeline look like right now if Carmelo Anthony had just said, hey guys, it's pouring rain. I know this ain't my tent. Like, sorry about it. Do you mind if I just chill here for a second? It's pretty cool shoes, man. Where'd you get those? Let's talk about the game. Let's talk about whatever. Like Pokemon cards. Like what if you had just been a functional part of society? What if you just had like something in your brain, that says, let's not commit murder today. Let's not commit crimes today. What if that had been like part of your thought process? But that wasn't part of Karmelo Anthony's thought process. We know now from this trial that he was a degenerate little criminal student, that he was constantly causing fights, getting in fights, probably because he's 130 pounds, 5'9". It's always the short kings. They're also pent up, right? And so he's like sitting there and behaving in a manner that's going to get someone killed. And you're telling me his parents didn't know this about him? Couldn't have stepped in or didn't encourage this? Who bought him the knife? Anybody ever asked that question? Who bought him the knife? Kid didn't have a job. So how do you afford a knife exactly? Well, his parents gave him the money for it. How else would he get it? Does his parents know that he was bringing a knife everywhere? Well, if they were good parents, they should have. The biggest crime here is that he couldn't have been that he isn't qualified for the death sentence, and that his parents couldn't serve with him. Because you should be able to charge the parents for these kind of things. This is criminal neglect. Karmelo Anthony's mom will be able to visit her son. There was no justice done yesterday. Austin Metcalf's mother will never see her son again. She'll have to go cry on a gravestone. So this isn't justice. It's the best that we have. So I guess I'll take it. But what we should be seeking for here is true, actual justice. And how do you get that? Well, you don't have the situation in the first place. You talk about the real problems in the culture aggressively and up front, and you deal with it. You talk about disproportionate young black men crime rates and how that is the single most violent subsection, population, and subculture in the world, in fact. You have an honest conversation about what happened there, because it didn't used to be that way. And what forces have assaulted the black community in this country. Then you need to talk about other countries. The UK is burning right now. The UK is burning. Got to tell you. Yeah, the team is talking about Pokemon cards. Yeah. I don't know, man. Do people still do Pokemon cards? I don't know. Here it is. It's the same thing is happening. People are done. People in Western society, people that are civilized, it's not a skin color thing. This is a civilizational thing. Are you down with are you down with what civilization actually is? This is Belfast right now. Same principles apply. We, the civilized taxpayers who uphold society and whose ancestors built society and who play by the rule, we're tired of being preyed on, raped, murdered, pillaged. We're sick of it. And we're sick of the protection mechanisms that the state uses in order to continue that process. And this is what's happening in the UK. The Belfast is set completely ablaze. Why? Well, because a 70 IQ or less third world invader from Sudan, who should have never been in Belfast, couldn't have built a plane, couldn't have built a train, couldn't have built a boat to get to Belfast, was brought there from Paris. Now we've learned. How do you get from Sudan to Paris to Belfast? Through Dublin. NGOs. He had a handler. Government agencies and organizations paid for this man to come to Belfast to behead an Englishman. When was the last time there was a beheading in England? I don't know, William Wallace? This man from Sudan is on public subsidies, gets unlimited public dole, and is from one of the single most violent places on earth, Sudan, where, according to all available reports, Sudan has tens of thousands of direct deaths and widespread atrocities every single year targeting ethnic groups. Why would you bring someone from this land in who is predisposed to targeting ethnic groups and place them in a target-rich environment from one of the most violent places on earth. Where is the justification for that? If we live in a republic, if we live in a democracy, where is the politician coming forward, standing afoot and saying, here is why I brought in unlimited third world migrants? Where has that conversation been? Who's had that? Who's had the balls to stand up and explain why someone from Sudan is allowed to live in Northern Ireland? Has anybody ever made that explanation? No, they just do it. Well, that's not a republic. That's a dictatorship. They just do it. A republic is the consent of the governed. It doesn't mean you get what you want all the time. It means over the expanse of time, you end up getting what the majority wants. The majority has never wanted open borders in our nation. I would argue that it's probably a 90-10 issue, but it's probably more like 99-1. Because even the immigrants who are here, even the illegals who are here, would not vote, and they can vote in California, would not vote for open borders. They know how dangerous it is. They're leaving places because of open borders. And they don't want that to come here. They view this as a giant lifeboat. They all need to go home. Millions need to leave or be made to leave. But the reason why they came here in the first place, they don't want to destroy it. They know better. No politician has ever put it up to a vote. We should have a national referendum. We need to have an actual constitutional convention. This is such a critical question to civilizational survival. We need to put it up and see the actual will of the people. Do you want unlimited third world migration into your neighborhoods or no? Yes or no? See what the results you'll get. We should poll the chat right now. What do you think the results would be for that exactly? I think that even in San Francisco, you'd be able to win that 90-10. I think you'd get 100-0. I think you might get 100-0 in the rest of the nation. But they never would do it. They can't do it. But they do it to us anyway. And that's how you get beheadings in the streets of the UK. There's now fires all throughout Belfast. Belfast is burning. Belfast is ablaze. Apologies for the inconvenience. This is all preventable. There are young groups of men wandering around the city, setting it on fire. And you can see here the aerial shot. Well, I remember during the BLM rallies that people, newscasters would say, well, this is the voice of the people. What other way can they protest? They need to be heard. These are the actions of the unheard. Remember that? I got some of the unheard for you, ladies and gentlemen. This is it's terrible, right? The scenes. But how will the politicians listen? Listen to this. It's the last clip. This call just blew me away this morning from this man. This Englishman calls in to a local Belfast radio station. Tell me if you don't feel this.
One voice note that stood out. Before Richard Tice, wherever you are, just pin back your logos. This was Rob.
Morning, Jez. On my way to work, that's normal. Listening to you talk about the thing that happened in Belfast last night, all the unrest. Well, yes, rightly, you shouldn't condone what happened. What else have people got to do? They're not listening. The political class are not listening. These people who are coming over here illegally, they're rapists, terrorists. They're coming over here. It's literally like putting a wolf in a sheep field. You are giving them a target-rich environment. You haven't vetted them. You've done nothing. All you've done is dump them in a place where they can wreak havoc. Where they come from, guess what? There's no law. If they can do literally whatever they like. They come over here, there's lawyers, of course, taxpayer funded. They get a nice cushy home, running water, Sky TV, gym memberships, bus passes. They can literally go where they want and create havoc. And when they do, the people that foisted them upon us, guess what? They say, don't get upset. Don't do anything. Don't go out and cause unrest. Well, I'll tell you what, mate. stop reaping, then you might not have to sow it, because this country is absolutely on the edge. They cannot take much more of people getting stabbed, raped, blown up, you name it. You foisted it upon us for the last 25, 30 years, ever since Blair said, I'm going to rub your noses in it. Well, guess what? What goes around comes around. And I think the political class have got a very, very, very big smack on the nose coming.
We reached out to Tommy Robinson yesterday. He's going to be on the show soon. I muted my mic because I need to have a sip of coffee to talk about exactly this. Same answer to the Karmelo Anthony protesters. Same answer that is in England today. Would it be too hard to stop raping and murdering? How about that? How about we stop doing the stabbing, raping, murdering, beheading of innocent people? Is that too much to ask? Because until we get that from our leaders, people are going to need to seek alternative means to be heard. This is why I'm like, thank God that there was a guilty verdict yesterday in Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be in Texas. Patriot Mobile will be our friends, partners, and sponsors at the Texas GOP convention. Patriot Mobile is based out of Texas. We'll be chilling with them on Friday. It's going to be a blast. I don't know if we have the promotional photo. It's going to be great. Brandon Gill will be there. Brandon Gill will be on the show today. Scott Bassett will be there. And we're going to be emceeing the GOP convention in Texas. It's going to be a blast. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be carrying our Patriot Mobile device with us. They have the best network and the most secure network, and also the only network that is conservative and Christian in this land and in this world. Go to patriotmobile.com/Benny, 972-PATRIOT to sign up today. Use promo code Benny for a free month of service. That's patriotmobile.com/Benny. Call 972-PATRIOT to make the switch today. All right, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to switch up here and jump on over to our guests. We have a man who I've named all four of my children. I think I also potentially named MAGA Hulk. I don't know. I don't take any credit for it, but there's a guy who did look like a MAGA Hulk that I found like supporting President Trump in the streets of California. So I called him that. He went viral. And now MAGA Hulk, Stephen Davis, joins the show live now. Stephen, welcome to the program. How are you?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. I think we're having some audio issues. I can't hear you.
Okay. All right. Hey, thanks, guys. We'll take you out, pop you off, and let a producer jump on in. You hate to see that happen. Let's hop on over to Byron Donalds, and we'll bring back Stephen. Here we go. Byron Donalds, candidate for governor of Florida. Is that true? That's great. Just reading the script. Our friend Byron, back on the show. Let's go. Byron, a lot to talk about, a lot of unrest all around the rest of the country. I guess we should start with the Karmelo Anthony verdict. What's your take on that?
Well, look, justice was done. That's my take on it. Look, you can't, obviously stabbing somebody else, it comes with severe penalties. Obviously, the fact that the jury came back so quickly and indicated how that trial went. And, look, at the end of the day, the young man whose life was lost, he's never coming home. He's not going to see his family. And so, the court moved very quickly and we move forward. And I think it's important, especially for young men, to understand that your decisions have real consequences. And so, you can't take them those lightly. You have to really govern yourselves accordingly at all times.
Yeah. What about the people who are protesting and saying that this is a rigged trial because there weren't any black jurors, or that we need to liberate him from prison, or that, white boy deserved to be stabbed? I mean, you're seeing some real ugliness out there in the streets right now.
Well, first of all, nobody deserves to be stabbed. Let's just start there. Nobody deserves that. Nobody wants that. Number two, the fact that this trial went this quickly and the jury came back that fast, probably demonstrated in the courtroom. And I have to go back and look at all the transcripts from the trial, but that would pretty much indicate that all the witnesses kind of came back with the same testimony and the same viewpoints. So when you see a jury come back that quickly, that pretty much means that the proceedings were very clear and very definitive on the outcome.
Yeah, it just seems like people are trying to turn this into something more than it actually is, which is a clear-cut murder case. 35 years. Some people are saying that seems a little light for murdering someone. I mean, Karmelo Anthony. I mean, I don't know. Is it actually justice? I guess is the question, because Austin Metcalf isn't here. He's gone. His parents will never be able to see him ever again. And I don't know. I'm glad that I live in the state of Florida, which has some pretty strict laws and some pretty strict governance and jurisprudence. But I guess you couldn't give the electric chair to anyone who's underage, and that would be Karmelo Anthony right now. I don't know. What's your overarching take, on how this is all going to shake out?
Well, first, 35 years. Even though, yes, you're correct, Austin Metcalf is never coming home to his family, but 35 years, from the scope of a 17-year-old is a lifetime. That's 35 years is a long time in any one of our, personal lives. And so, at the end of the day, I think the jury weighed it all, obviously weighed his age and said, we think this is the appropriate punishment. And I think it's important for people, all the Monday morning quarterbacking on the sentence or on the trial, you weren't in that room. You weren't having to deliberate over the facts. You weren't having to go through the painstaking process to try to make sure that justice was served. And so, 35 years is a very long time in the scope of anybody's life. I mean, you're talking about now he's basically going to serve easily a third to half of his life behind bars. And, we'll see what happens, as he makes his way through that process and what happens on the other side.
Yeah, I find it very interesting that there's plenty of gangster photos of Karmelo Anthony, flipping off the camera, holding firearms, doing drugs. But yet breaks down in tears and is sobbing and is shaking and is hysterically uncontrollable in the courthouse. There's something like very rotted and very wrong in culture that sort of drives young men to this. And that says, I guess, like that everything's a rap song, right? That there's not going to be any real world consequences. What is that? You have 3 boys. Like, what is that we have to fix? I have 2 boys. What is that we have to fix as fathers in culture when it comes to parenting our sons to ensure that they don't end up in this situation? Because both of these young men, Karmelo Anthony and Austin Metcalf, like, this situation could have been so easily avoided, and both of them could have gone about their lives, right? Alive and able to make better decisions. But that's all done now. And I think it does boil down to bad parenting. Where's the breakdown here, Byron?
Look, I think the first part is, when kids are young, and I'm talking 4, 5, 6, in their home, you have to understand that there are consequences. Like, if you make a poor decision, and look, Benny, you have young kids. My kids are a little bit older now. But even when they were little, you hold them accountable, not because you're trying to be mean, but because you want them to understand that when you make a wrong decision, there will be a punishment, there will be a consequence. And so that as you age and as you mature, you have to govern yourselves accordingly. You have to be mindful of every decision that you make. And so I think that, when you're talking about parenting, and not even so much parenting, specifically fatherhood, this is why fathers are so critical in the home, because they actually help young men understand that there are limits to their emotions. You referenced him breaking down in the courtroom. Well, that's because now you're being met with the full weight of consequences for a decision or an action that you decided to make in the heat of the moment. And even in the heat of the moment, there are real consequences that come from that. And so, I think that's why, the reality of that hitting all at once, I think will probably, break down just about anybody, regardless of where you come from. But I think when you're talking about raising kids and culture, part of this is social media. Having kids just looking at social media nonstop and thinking that this is the way you comport yourself, this is the way you act, this is the way you carry yourself, it's just not reality. And I think that's where parenting, especially fatherhood, is critical to helping young men understand, not number one, how they're supposed to treat other people. Number two, how they're really supposed to be guardians of society and really maintaining an established culture of respect towards one another. And I think if you have more of that, then situations like this, which is like an argument in the stands, gets diffused pretty quickly, as opposed to, unfortunately, what it turned into.
That's exactly right. It turned into a real mess. Young men with impulse control. We're constantly working on that in the Johnson household. I'm constantly working on that. Regulation. Strength is actually silence and stoicism. And not accelerating a bad situation, but decelerating, defusing. That's what actual strength is.
Yeah.
More young men need to be taught that, and also taught that the real world punches back. I think that's like the consequence culture is something like the consequence culture and consequences for your children is like so important because like the world has real world. You'll get punched in the face by a stronger guy at the bar, by the bouncer. You'll get thrown into the street. Right? If you're acting a fool, you'll get put in handcuffs. If you make enough bad decisions, the real world has real physical consequences. And so young men, especially, I think, need to learn that at home.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think the other piece is that you just want to be respectful of other people. And sometimes you get disrespected. That happens in life. It happens every now and again, but you have to make that decision and be very sober about it. Am I just going to respond because that's what the expectation is? Or am I just going to get myself out of this situation because you just have no idea what's going to happen next, especially when emotions are high and things escalate very, very quickly. And so, even with my sons, I tell them, I'm like, listen, somebody wants to say stuff to you, talk about you. The number one thing to do is get out of that situation. Like because you just don't know, frankly, who that person is or the other people that are in the environment. You just have no idea, and things can get out of hand very, very fast. And so, trying to make sure they understand that the responsible and mature thing is to not escalate these types of situations, but to try to find ways to get out of them very quickly, move on with your day, because those people, you may not see them again, or you might see them 4, 5, 6 more times. But especially as you get older, you leave high school into college and then college into life, you're really not going to engage those people anymore anyway. Nobody's really going to remember except for like the 5-minute altercation. Somebody might, tell a story about it, whatever the case might be, but you don't want to be in a very bad situation that can definitely get out of hand like this one did.
Yeah, living a well and full life is the best revenge. Florida is living a great revenge against our arch nemesis of California, but California is in the news cycle, and it's a nightmare over there. What do you make of the election style and process that has caused so many people to rage that things are not on the up and up with that election?
Listen, I think it's crazy. California doesn't know how to do elections well. Or actually, let me correct that. California knows what they're doing. Their election system is atrocious. Florida, we have the best election system in the country. It's not close, and that's kudos to Governor DeSantis, all his hard work on election security and election integrity. This is why we return our results back at basically 10 o'clock at night, and everybody goes to bed knowing what the outcome is. Not this mess in California where Spencer Pratt was in second place on election night, and then like 5 days later, he's out of the runoff. Like, this is craziness. Like, the number one thing they need to change is with these mail-in ballots, first of all, you just can't send them out to everybody. That's crazy. People should have to request them. That's what happens in Florida. Number two, they got to clean up their voting rolls. The Democrats don't want to do that because then it gives them an opportunity to figure out how many ballots they need. Number three, I think in California, they don't postmark their mail-in ballots. So they're metered. So they go back through the post office with no postmark. So who knows when they were sent in? And so like these are the controls that California needs. I mean, first of all, let me help Gavin Newsom. Just look at Florida's election law and copy that. Your state will be better off. You'll probably have a bunch of Democrats lose because you won't be able to ballot harvest the way you do, but you would have security and control in your elections, and you get your outcomes done election night how it should be. This is like watching the NBA Finals. And then they're playing game 3, right? and it's a tight game, but then, the game ends, the buzzer sounds, but then the Knicks and the Spurs get to add in more points after the buzzer sounds. Like that's how California runs their elections. It makes no sense. And California's not the only state that does that. You have other states, other blue states that do that too. It's crazy. And it's really sad for the people of California that their government has no respect for them, that they would allow this kind of a system to occur and continue, and everybody think it's okay. It's totally disrespectful to the voters.
Disenfranchising to 5 million Republicans. California has more registered Republicans than almost any other state in the union. 5 million Republicans live in California. I think it's a civil rights violation to do elections like this because it steals from them. Just really quickly, I know we're at a hard out for you, Byron. What is the way to fix this? I mean, the SAVE Act, right? That would be a good start. I guess the Supreme Court might rule on late counted ballots, but the real fix would be the SAVE Act, correct?
Save America Act would take care of basically all of this. It would require that only Americans are voting in our elections, and every election jurisdiction would have to certify and verify that who is on the rolls are American citizens, and it would require voter ID for all ballots to be counted. That is common sense stuff. 80% of Democrats support it. 80% of Democrats support it. The only people that don't support it are elected Democrats and the Democrat Party because, to be blunt, they use weak systems. They use terrible voter checks. They allow these open-ended ballot harvesting operations to go on under the guise of state law so they can win elections. It is reprehensible. No company would allow for counting of inventory like this. They would actually be sanctioned, and there would be fraud investigations all over the place. But that's how these blue states run their elections. It's really disrespectful to not just the people of that state, but quite frankly, to the entire country.
Oh, but come on, man. It's not just Democrats. Like, there are plenty of Republicans that voted. There are Republican senators that voted against the Save America Act. They put it up for a vote 2 days ago.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. They ain't going to be around much longer anyway. I just don't agree. I think it's crazy. I think this is the craziest thing in the world. The Senate needs to get this done. Yeah. And for Senate Democrats to block it all the time, that should tell the American people they do not care about protecting your vote. They only care about manipulating the system for political gain.
If you like the Save America Act, you can move on down to Byron Donald's state and to my state. Come on down to Florida, because we already have the Save America Act and then some in Florida. Is that correct, Byron?
That is correct. Governor DeSantis actually signed into law the Florida version of the Save America Act that is now law in Florida, as well as all of the protections and security measures for our election system. Florida's come a long way since the hanging chads of 2000. We have the best election system in the country. It's not close. Other states are actually looking at Florida's laws and trying to find ways to add that to their systems. And they should, because at the end of the day, this is really all about the sanctity of the vote and protecting the franchise of every American citizen.
Millions of people follow Byron Donalds. He's the next governor of the state of Florida. Give him a follow right now. And man, maybe we'll be seeing you in Tampa for a debate here, Byron.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens, man. All right, Godspeed. Thank you for your time today, Congressman.
Take it easy.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have on a man from the great state of Texas, somebody who is very, very excited about talking about sort of the greater overall architectural conversation we're having on the show. From Belfast to Frisco, Texas, Karmelo Anthony to the beheading in the streets of Northern Ireland, the fall of Western civilization or the salvation of Western civilization. What will happen next? Brandon Gill joins the program live right now. Congressman, welcome back to the show. I look forward to seeing you in Texas and Houston on Friday, right? Is this going to be good?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's going to be a good time in Houston. I think you're going to enjoy Texas.
Yes, I always do enjoy Texas, although they forced me to wear a cowboy hat at the last event that we did in Dallas, and I felt like that was cultural appropriation. I like, your culture is not my costume.
We get a lot of liberals from California coming to Texas. We're always happy to have anybody else who shares our values.
I'm not going to wear a cowboy hat. Okay. I'm glad that they got me one, but I'm not going to wear it. And really excited though to go to Texas, especially given the fact that Texas has been delivering win after win after win for our culture. One, Texas held accountable, and you deserve an enormous amount of credit because you endorsed, to your own political peril, early Ken Paxton against the John Thune selected John Cornyn. And you won, not only by a little, you won by a demonstrable margin. And then Texas delivering justice yesterday in the Karmelo Anthony case. And it's sad that we've come to the point where this is seen as a victory. This should just be seen as normal. This actually isn't, frankly, justice. Justice would be an eye for an eye if you're looking at the Old Testament. But at the very least, there's a result that doesn't let Karmelo Anthony just straight out of the courthouse free. And so we're very thankful for Texas for these big cultural victories. Maybe you could sound off on both of them.
Yeah, well, I mean, first of all, on the Ken Paxton victory, I mean, the people of Texas were looking for somebody who's going to go to Washington and who's going to fight for them, who's going to represent their values. Paxton's somebody who has been the greatest attorney general that Texas has had, and at least in modern political history, somebody who goes to bat against the left every single day. And that's what they're looking for. I mean, and I think that a lot of that election was about many things, but it was about amnesty as well. It was about immigration policy that the people of Texas, and I think across the country, want us to fulfill the promises that we made last election cycle. And they believed rightfully that Ken Paxton is going to do a better job of fulfilling those promises. Now we're at the point where we've got, I think, a great candidate going into the general election. Paxton is somebody who will excite the people of Texas, which is really important in a midterm election cycle when President Trump's name is not on the ballot. You want somebody who gets the base excited, and Ken Paxton does. So I think that we're in a good position there. It's time for the Republican Party to unify. It is unifying, so we can make sure that we beat Tallarico. But that was a huge win, I think, for the grassroots in Texas to get Ken Paxton there. He's somebody who has been with them through thick and thin, who has been put through hell by the left. And he comes out stronger because he comes out swinging all the time. And that's what we need. The Karmelo Anthony verdict yesterday, I mean, that was justice. That's the justice system working the way that it should. I mean, this was horrific. This was a guy who went into another team's camp at a track meet, was told to leave 15 times, stabbed a guy for really no good reason that anybody can discern other than just pure barbarity, and should be in prison for a long time. I agree with you. I mean, real justice would mean the death penalty, but 35 years is something that I think we can at least be proud of.
Yeah. You can't be proud of the way that some people have responded in the streets. It seems like they're trying to stoke this into some type of major race issue. Jasmine Crockett popping off saying this morning that Austin Metcalf's mother doesn't know the pain that a black woman faces every single day. What does that mean? What is that?
That's shocking. I have not seen that she said that. I mean, Austin Metcalf's mother is the mother who doesn't have a son anymore because this barbarian went over and stabbed him 15 times in the heart. The idea that you've got members of Congress who want to turn things like this and racialize our justice system without any justification whatsoever. I mean, if anything, in this case, this was a black kid murdering a white kid. I think that's where, if there's a racial issue here, that's where the issue is. Not with the fact that, if you stab somebody and you murder them, you're going to go to prison for a long time. But it's just another reminder. Thank God Jasmine Crockett won't be here in Washington anymore.
Here's the exact quote. We have it up on screen. Black women live in agony that I promise you Austin Metcalf's mother has never lived through. I promise you the Metcalfs have never lived through. So there it is. It's a repulsive thing to say. I mean, it's like They're like I mean, on some level, it's like they're asking for a completely different justice system that does not look at right or wrong, that simply looks at skin color and says, because you're of my tribe, you'll be innocent no matter what atrocity you commit against the other racial group. And you're seeing that, by the way, across the West. I think that's why Belfast is burning right now. That's the Henry Novak situation. You can see it, and I think it's important to call it out when you see that. Because if you don't live in a colorblind meritocracy, none of our systems work, right? The entire system collapses the moment that you adopt that. It's all gone. Yep. There's either equal justice for everyone, colorblind justice for everyone, or for no one. And it's then it's a failed state. I think it's like really important to call that out.
Of course it is. I mean, I think most normal Americans look at this and they say, I really don't care what the color of your skin is. If you go and murder somebody, you should either get the death penalty or be in prison for a really, really long time. But you've got these idiotic race hustlers like Jasmine Crockett who have no substance to themselves whatsoever. Intellectually, politically, it's why she's lost her Senate race, who want to turn this into some sort of racially divisive race war and suggest that somehow because this kid is black or because his mother is black, he should be given some sort of special privilege in our justice system. I mean, there's so little coherence to what she's saying. It's hard to take it on face value. But basically, I think the intent behind it is that there should be two different tiers of justice. And that apparently, according to Jasmine Crockett, if you're of one skin color, you should be treated differently and much more leniently, apparently, than if you have white skin, which is so gross and as you said, repulsive and antithetical to equal justice under the law, to the way most people view right and wrong. That it's amazing that we have somebody in Congress who actually believes this. But we do, and we deal with it every day. And that, by the way, is, you talk about Belfast. That's why we have problems like that in Belfast. You see European leaders who I think have a similar mentality, and they say if a migrant comes into Europe and he tries to behead one of a native European, he's not doing that because he's a barbarian. He's not doing that because he's a bad person. He's doing that because somehow he's been oppressed by European countries, whether through colonialism or through more modern policies. And because of that, we need to be more lenient to them. And whenever you do that, whether it's the Karmelo Anthony or in Europe, civilization unravels. Whenever you don't have swift, severe, and just justice, civilization does unravel.
So let's talk about this real quickly, because Belfast is burning. There's now words of revolution on the streets of the United Kingdom, and it could have all been avoided if a republic just acted like a republic. And I think I boiled it down to this. No politician, left, right, center, no agency has ever asked the people, do you want unlimited third world migration from some of the most violent places on earth? The level of violence in Sudan is so extreme and so ethnically oriented. So it's the place of the most extreme ethnic violence in the world. What do you expect is going to happen when you put them in a target-rich environment where you bring them from a place where beheadings are commonplace and normal in the streets and nobody even intervenes, and it is, of course, a failed state? I don't understand the thought process for what do you expect is going to happen. But more importantly, most regular people get this, Congressman. Why have our leaders, they've done this to us without consent. That's the thing I can't get over. A republic is, we have consent, the consent of the governed. Somehow these policies have happened without our say-so. Nobody asked. They've never been put to a petition. They've never been put up to an election. No American ever voted for this. Why is it happening?
Yeah, I think that the left is the one you've had. First of all, it's coming primarily from the left, but you've had some people historically on our side of the aisle who have gone along with it. They've gone along with it because they want cheap third world labor and because they view the United States more as a sort of economic zone composed of atomized economic units rather than a nation with people that has a history and a heritage that needs to be conserved. that's been the issue on our side of the aisle, and I think that within the Republican side, we are winning the debate against that. Now, on the left, I think the left views these people as potential voters, as people who can come into the United States, who can turn our social structure upside down and create an environment that's more conducive to Democrats winning elections. I mean, if you remember, the common Democrat mantra is never let a good crisis go to waste, right? But I think that the next step is, if we don't have a crisis, create one. And mass migration, particularly from third world countries, creates multiple crises. One, it reduces working class wages. It makes our communities significantly less safe. It strains our social systems and our education systems. And all of these are problems that Democrat politicians want to come in and attempt to solve. They never do, but they want to be the good guys who come in, the heroes who can solve these problems, whether it's giving more money to a failing education system, or using sort of a ghettoized portions of the United States as sort of political fodder for themselves. But I think the most frustrating part about this is, to your point, this is not something that most Americans support. They don't want infinity third world migration. I think most people understand the reality that whenever you import, whenever somebody comes into the United States, especially large groups of people, and they hold, millennium-old ethnic grievances or ethnic conflicts, those don't just go away at the door. They don't check those ethnic conflicts at the door. They bring those into the United States. I mean, you saw this in Minnesota recently. I think it was a mayoral race there, where one of the big issues was which clan in Somalia, which Somali clan the mayoral candidate was affiliated with. And we're not talking about Somalians versus, another African nation. We're talking about clans within Somalia having all kinds of beef with another, and that coming into American communities. I mean, could you ever imagine Somali clan grievances being a political factor in any election in the United States? Absolutely not. And that's because all of that stuff comes in. Whenever you bring in third world people, that often comes with third world behavior, particularly whenever you do it in mass, which we have been.
Can you just speak to me? And I know that we're up against a hard out, but I think this is such a critical question for our generation. I know you're younger than me, but for people that are relatively young, I have young children, you have young children. The mythos of World War II and the great wars and the great conflicts of our grandparents, and what that promise was and how that has been betrayed. And I think this is a critical topic, because we sent the best young men of a generation ago off to go die on beaches and go get slaughtered for the promise of a stable, rules-based Western world that provided peace and security on our home streets, for peace in the homeland. We'll go over there to die and be turned into, sausage on a field in France or Belgium or whatever, so that we can have peace at home. And that was the promise to our grandparents. And that promise has been not only betrayed, has been thrown in our face and lit ablaze by politicians who bring the chaos, raping, pillaging, the horrors of war to our streets.
Yep.
It is actually the inverse of what this I want people to be able to see that is the betrayal of what our ancestors fought for. That third world migration is actually the reversal of the great wars and the reversal of the promise of why we should fight and die in those wars, and how atrocious that is for Western civilization. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, so we fought a series. World War II, I think, is a great example, and to really distill it and summarize. I mean, we fought for a Western civilization that did adhere to certain principles, certain values, that rule of law, things that have been deeply embedded in our society, in a certain form of rules, of a rules-based order that most Western nations would agree to. We fought against, of course, Nazi tyranny and the evils of many of our foes in that war. But the understanding was coming out of that, we would live in a country, in a Western civilization that would be civilized, that where we could engage, where we could raise our families in our own cultures, in a peaceful place, in a stable society, somewhere where you can start a business and get a job and engage in commerce and do all the things that that you associate with peaceful life. And then at some point in the 1960s, the West decided um, uh, uh, because of what they believed to be past wrongs that the West has committed, that in order to rectify those, we need to start bringing in people from other societies, people who do not share the same cultural assumptions that we do in any way, and oftentimes are very much contrary to the cultural assumptions that we have. And in doing so, we pretty much in many ways, sort of through immigration, turned our back on many of the things that America and the West has stood for and fought and bled and died for. I think you can see a really good example of this actually in the War on Terror. The mantra on the War on Terror, I think this is a direct example. The mantra at the time was, we need to fight them over there so that we don't have to fight them over here. In other words, we need to fight whether it's radical Islamists or people or other forms of barbaric cultures on the other side of the globe, because we want to make sure that they do not gain strength and then build and expand and come anywhere near us. And since then, we found out that, we did fight them over in Afghanistan. And now we have a lot of our leaders who want to bring large numbers of Afghani refugees and Afghani citizens to immigrate into the United States, a direct contradiction of what we were told 20 years ago. And I think that if you had gone back 20 years ago and you had told the American people, we're going to go to war in the Middle East, and once that war is over, we're going to import tens of thousands of Afghanis into American communities, most Americans would say no. They would have said that I'm not willing to make that trade. And that's something that we're still dealing with.
Still dealing with it. Brandon, I know that you have to go, but I have just one final quick cursory cultural question for you about fatherhood.
Yep.
Because I feel like so much of this is actually connected to either so much of these problems, misplaced suicidal empathy culturally, or Karmelo Anthony lashing out, lack of impulse control in young men, lack of strength in young men. So much of it, the ability to see your society degraded, has to do with a lack of institutional fatherhood and strength for fathers. What is your recommendation? You're a young father. What is your recommendation for how to raise up the next generation of actual strong men who will create good times?
Well, I've got a 1-year-old son, but I think that, first of all, it's a recognition that the most important job that we have is to raise families. For me, that's a more fulfilling job than being in Congress even. And I love, I very much enjoy being in Congress and fighting for the country. But I can genuinely say that raising 2 kids and being a good husband is far more important and fulfilling than that. So I think once you recognize that, you realize that everything that we do here, whether it's in politics or just in your personal life, is to raise your kids and allow them to have the same blessings that we got to enjoy in the United States. And a big portion of that is guiding them, teaching young kids the difference between right and wrong, and the value of our country and the value of preserving it. And whenever they see that, and that often includes having a certain resolve to defend the West, even in uncomfortable situations. And whenever they see that, I think that's they're going to find that compelling and inspiring.
Wise words from a young father. And if we had more young fathers like this is how you save Western civilization. Strong fathers save Western civilization. Strong parents save Western civilization. This is how you do it. Follow Brandon Gill, Congressman Brandon Gill. I'll see you in Texas soon, my friend.
Awesome. Thanks, Benny.
I love these interviews. I love talking a little bit more esoteric about the problems that we face in the West. I feel like it's going to be our generation. Always falls to, here's how it goes. One generation has to go save the West, go fight, die, and like lay down in the trenches and in the fields to go save the West, to go give the next generation an unbelievably great run, and then they'll screw it up, which has happened to us. They'll screw it up, and then the next generation is going to have to fix it. It's the cycle. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create bad times. Bad times create strong men. And the cycle continues throughout all time until ultimately civilization breaks, and that's what we must stand against, the breaking of civilization. Throughout all civilization, there's been a single currency that has upheld its value in the test of time, and that would be gold. Advantage gold is how you ensure that you have a golden future and that you have something that is solid and real in your bank account, savings. The markets have gone insane, and up one day, down the next. It's been an unbelievable roller coaster. But if you check how gold has performed, not only the last couple of years, but just throughout all time, you'll see just the stable physical asset growth. And this is what wealthy people do. They buy physical assets for all time. And so, text Benny to 85545. BENNY to 85545. And you'll discover how to retire and move your retirement into physical gold and silver with Advantage Gold. No cost, no obligation. Text Benny to 85545 to have and believe in something real. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do want to get a little excited and risky with your portfolio, you can. If you do want to take chances when everybody else is when all of the world is fluid and moving, Rumble Wallet is a great opportunity to make sure that you can invest in the future economy. Tip your favorite creators on the Rumble platform, which we love so very much. Free speech platform. It fights for freedom. Rumble Wallet is where you can store your crypto. It's not niche at all. It's completely mainstream. Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, gold-backed, real gold, all in one place. Rumble Wallet uses some of the safest and most secure technology in the world in order to get you up and running and understanding what's coming next. You can get set up right now. Tip your favorite creators like me directly. Do this. You can scan the QR code on screen or click the link in the description and download Rumble Wallet and then just tap buy. You're in the game. Take control of your money and get started with Rumble Wallet today. Rumble Wallet is a technology provider and not a custodial service. See terms Rumble at wallet.rumble.com. Wallet.rumble.com. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that's our show for today. Sorry to Stephen Davis, MAGA Hulk, for that. I guess we'll talk to the producers as to what happened there. But I know what's going to happen here. The verse of the day. From Isaiah 1:17. Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Whoa. Thank you for this verse. Thank you. Perfect. Take up the cause of the fatherless. Look at how the scriptures cry out and say that being fatherless is a real problem that we need to defend our society against the fatherless, to raise up young men, to be strong and courageous, to seek justice and learn to do right. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what we must do. Isaiah 1:17. Giving us our marching orders. March along with us. We're on our road to victory. It's your boy Benny. See ya.
The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest kings, and the dying legacy, media deal weeds. Soon will the penny show come to mind. The salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for number one. Come to mind, the salt from lives for fun. Leave the gold and bring the gun. We sail for number one. The biggest ships in the sea, all owned by the oldest king.